Since almost a year now, end of August 2019 to be exact, I have moved to an apartment in a different city because my mother, who I lived with in my hometown, passed away from cancer. I have moved here with my long-term boyfriend and one other roommate, who has been a good friend of both of us since before we had even started dating. We all absolutely love it here. The location is great. It's a 15-minute bike ride from my university, and it's located at a square with a grocery store, drugstore, lunchrooms, etc. So we pretty much have everything we could possibly need to survive within walking distance. However, after just a month or two of living here, someone has started to ring my doorbell at exactly 11:05 p.m. semi-regularly. Sometimes every day, sometimes every other day, sometimes there is a week in between, and sometimes there are a couple of weeks in between. But it is always at around 11:05 p.m. And every single time, I get no answer each time I ask through the intercom who it is. Except for one time, but I will get to that in a bit. At first, I thought it was friends from one of the neighbors who accidentally rang the wrong doorbell, but after around the fourth time I grew suspicious. And after more than those 4 times, I started noticing that it always happens at either exactly 11:05 p.m., or a few minutes earlier or later. My boyfriend and roommate both work at bars, and so they work until very late and would usually only get home around 2 a.m. So each time it happened, I was always alone at home, and it started to really freak me out after a while. When I first told them about it, they kind of shrugged it off and said that it was probably a wrong dial, like I thought at first, but when I told them that it has happened so many times, and sometimes even daily, they didn't really believe me and thought I was just a little paranoid and spooked. However, one night, when the doorbell rang again, and I answered the intercom asking who it was, I heard very heavy breathing. I was thoroughly spooked at that moment. I was again home alone and kept asking who they were and what they wanted. I couldn't make up from the breathing if it was a man or a woman, but I heard a strange mumbling/whispering, and then it was dead silent, and they had appeared to have left. I had put my apartment door on a double lock after that. I was so scared and spooked out. Thankfully my roommate got home a little earlier that night, around 30 minutes after the doorbell rang, and he could tell how upset I was. Now with the quarantine, my roommate and boyfriend aren't able to work anymore, and they now also witness the frequent door ringing at 11:05 p.m. So they now do believe me and agree that it is very odd and creepy. We have a balcony that looks down at where our apartment building's main front door is, but because there's also a shop right underneath us that always has those curtain/roof things out, the view to the door is partially obscured. Every time our doorbell rang, me, my boyfriend and roommate would go to the balcony to see if we could see anyone, but we never could. I have also asked my neighbors from my apartment building if their doorbell also gets rung so often, but the ones that I asked all said that it has never happened to them. So 2 weeks ago, my roommate decided to do some investigating and went outside our apartment building, at 11 p.m., standing across the street, and pretended to have a smoke while keeping an eye on the door. He said he did see a man who looked kind of suspicious wandering around our apartment building, who slowed down his pace significantly as soon as he approached our door, but when he spotted my roommate looking at him, he quickly walked away. We aren't 100% sure if that's the door ringer, but that was very suspicious. Our doorbell hasn't been rang at night since that day, and I am hoping that maybe it will stop now, but there is a possibility that it will continue again in a few weeks. If this keeps up, I will contact the police about it. I've been planning and asking more neighbors from other apartment buildings next to ours if this also happens to them. If it doesn't, I'll call the police next time it happens. I however doubt that the police will do anything right now, since with the quarantine, the police will now only respond to serious crimes or immediate threatening situations. So, strange man who rings my doorbell at 11:05 at night so often, please stop, and let's please never meet. This was about 8 years ago now. I was living with my mum and stepdad in Devon, England after getting really sick a year before, and having to move in with them to be looked after. I was 22 to 23 years old. My mum had moved into the house about 3 years earlier, and my stepdad, who was already with my mum, had moved in about 8 years earlier. I never liked the house. It's what we would say is a new build house in the UK, and is on a large development site that has about 100 houses which are all built in the same 5 designs over and over. The house is a detached house with a dead-end road outside, and then beyond that a green strip of trees and bushes before an iron railing fence, and then another road. It is a really quiet area, There is the occasional car but not constant traffic noise, which I am more used to having grown up in a city in Wales. As I have said, I never liked the house. There is 3 doors into the house: the front door, the side door, and French doors out of the conservatory. There was also a garage that was built into the house, and had an entrance to the house near the kitchen. My mom has now had this remodeled, and it's bricked over into an office room, and I never liked how many doors there were into the house. My stepdad travels a lot for work, and my mom sometimes goes with him. I liked them going away for a few days because I had the house to myself with just the cat, and I got some independence which I missed after getting sick, but I never slept well when I was on my own in the house. Instead, I would stay up late into the night, and catnap with the light on in the hallway, and my bedroom door open so I could open my eyes, and look straight at the top of the stairs. One night they were away, and it was about 2 a.m., and I was sitting on the sofa in the living room with my laptop, and only one lamp on right behind me. Every door was locked, and I double-checked them twice before I was comfortable in closing the curtains, which are really heavy, and don't let light in or out, so I am pretty sure that no one could see the light that was on behind me as the living room door was mostly closed. I was stretched out on the sofa with my laptop on my lap, and at my feet the cat was asleep. I'm not sure what I was doing on my laptop, maybe studying, but more likely scrolling through Tumblr. As I sat there, the cat stirred, and lifted her head, tilting it towards the front door. I couldn't see the front from where I was sitting because of the living room door being pushed, and to be honest, when the cat woke up at first I wasn't really paying attention, and she is quite a timid cat who gets startled at nothing. Maybe she can see demons? The cat stirred properly, still looking intently at the living room door still, and as I finally paid attention to her, I noticed that the hallway beyond the door was lit up by the porch security light through the glass window in the front door. I was wary but not overly worried straight away because I had noticed that the light comes on when foxes run past the house. I got up, and moved towards the living room door, but before I opened it, I could hear the handle of the door being very slowly pulled down. It was an old wooden door rather than the PVC doors you get usually, and it was basic mortise or sash lock. I had locked the door and removed the key earlier, and put across these really flimsy bolts at the top, and bottom across. I could hear the handle being really slowly pulled down because it squeaked slightly at the barest rattle of the door, and I was terrified. I picked up my mobile from the coffee table really quick, and entered 999 into it, so I just had to press call if need be before opening the living room door. The porch light was still on, and through the glass, which was frosted, I could see the outline of a man standing to one side of the door, and the handle was pressed all the way down. I froze for a second, and had no idea how to react. The handle was obviously not opening the door, but he wasn't letting go, and I could see the door move very slightly as he seemed to push against the door. I finally shouted out something along the lines of, "Oi! What the fuck do you think you are doing?" And the handle snapped back up, and I stepped into the hall so he could see me through the glass like I could see him through it. There was a pause of what felt like the longest 5 seconds of my life of us looking at each other, and then the outline ran away back up the driveway, and it was too dark to see where he went. I didn't sleep that night at all, and kept going around making sure the doors were still locked. My mum and stepdad came home the next day, and I explained what had happened to my mum, and she thought maybe it had been someone drunk coming home from the pub, and getting the wrong house, and not to worry too much about it. A few years later, after I had moved back to Wales, and my mum stayed alone in the house when my stepdad went away again, she was lying in bed on her laptop with the cat, same cat, lying at the top of the stairs at about 1 a.m. My mum had her bedside light on but no other lights in the house, and as she watched, the cat stirred, and looked down the stairs directly at the door. My mum got up to see what she was looking at, and looking down to the front door could see someone through the glass trying the handle. She slapped the lights on as quickly as she could, and yelled down at them. Whoever it was also scarpered as well. Not sure if the two instances are linked at all considering the time frame between them. If the person/people who keep trying to enter my parents' house are reading, please go away, and let's never meet again.